back in the the 70s and stuff in terms of and what it's like now. Right. So you're nice and relaxed, aren't you? We're just gonna have a chat, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Are you all right, dear?
I'm all right.
Right, dear.
That's basically what
you
that's
got
what
your
James
camera.
is doing,
I've
isn't
got the
it?
carers coming in a minute. So
You got your camera working. You got your camera working, and you
I'm
got a
so
cup of
pleased.
tea.
Well, James.
It's not funny.
No, it is. No, it isn't funny. Okay. Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity Podcast, episode 218. And if you are listening on the day of release, like I know many of you do worldwide, it is the 1st of October. No, it's not. Sorry. It's the 1st of November today. It's the 1st of November when this is going out. And we are joined by a very special guest today who I'll introduce you to in a minute. But first of all, we'll touch base with Mr. Peter Lant in Bath. How are you doing, Pete?
I'm doing very well. I'm ready to get going on this. This will be great.
Yes, it's going to be fun. We've already had a bit of fun before we've started recording, but yeah, no, it's going to be really good. So we are joined today by Sue Collins, formerly Sue Mapstone, who is a lady who is a member of Unique Results. She is fantastic lady. We've been skiing together a number of times. We've been on walking weekends together a number of times. And there's lots of reasons why we got Sue on, but Sue is a kind of a former international athlete in her youth and has been to 2 Commonwealth Games. And then went into, I mean, we're going to find all about Sue's life. We're not going to touch on the dating scene, as Sue mentioned earlier. We're not going to be.
I've got so much to tell you about that.
We could do a whole other episode on that.
That's going to be a separate
We'll do
episode, like a Cilla Black kind of blind date episode. But yeah, we're not going to be talking about the dating.
No, praise the Lord for that.
Well, if it's appropriate to the story, we'll talk about the dating. But if it's not, then we won't. Yeah, because Sue's been. Well, we're going to find out about Sue, but fascinating, interesting lady. And we're going to crack on. So, first of all, welcome to the Health Oddity Podcast, Sue.
Thank you. I'm very much enjoying being called a lady.
Oh, you are a lady. You are a lady. Okay. And Sue, so I suppose really what would be great to begin with is to you went to the Commonwealth Games in 1974, 1978. We want to kind of talk about that. But I suppose really initially, kind of how you got involved in sport or exercise as a child. I think you're from like Harlow in Essex. And how that kind of then how you went from being a potentially a normal kind of active child into, going to the Commonwealth Games a couple of times, and you went to European Championships with athletics, and I know some of your contemporaries, are kind of names that people will recognize from track and field and things like that. And it's just kind of how you got into that world initially, and then I suppose. Well, let's cover that. Let's start with that, because otherwise I'm gonna fire so many questions at you. Start at the beginning. Yeah, start at the beginning.
Start at the very beginning, and if you want to, stop me and ask questions, then obviously feel free. So, so family-wise, no history of any major sporting prowess or anything. My dad's only claim to fame was that he was in the tug of war team in the army, and that's really about it. So at primary school, I was fast. I was a really fast runner, so I used to win the district sports, played netball, and then went up to secondary school. So I went to school in Harlow, and Harlow was Harlow Newtown. So we moved out to Harlow in 1958 when I was 2.
And where did you move from? London or
from North London? Yeah. So really and truly, I should be an Arsenal supporter because I was born in Islington.
Okay.
For other reasons, I'm Spurs. So we came to Harlow, and what a place to grow up as a child if you were into sport. It gets a lot of stick nowadays. It's a very different place, but What a place. It had the first purpose-built sports centre, Harlow Sports Centre, and that was my life as a, from the age of 10, you know, we used to hang out there all the time. And so I went to school to Lattenbush Comprehensive School in Harlow. There were 8 comprehensives, a very big sporting background. Each school had at least 6 PE teachers. It was brilliant. If you loved sport, it was brilliant. If you hated sport, not so much so. You know, being pushed out to play hockey on a January afternoon. So my PE teacher, Jean Ogilvie, suggested I went to the athletics club and introduced me to the athletics club. And from there, off we go. You know, that was my life. It was brilliant.
And was the athletics club, was that the athletics track that was next to the sports centre?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I used to work there, didn't I? I used to work at Harlow Sports Centre, and they had the athletics track still there, and they had the dry ski slope and all that sort of stuff. It was a great setup. Yeah.
It's now a
housing estate. Yeah.
I was in the Willow Beauty last week, meeting up with some old pals, and we used to go to the Willow Beauty pub, which overlooked the cricket ground. I mean, that cricket ground at Harlow Sports Centre was good enough to play county cricket. So, and we used to sit out there afterwards and have a Coca-Cola. And yeah, with many happy times there. So there were several coaches at Harlow Athletics Club who really impacted on my life. One was a guy called Cecil Smith, who was a Welshman. He was a driving force at that club. He didn't coach me directly, but he was big in my life. And then the next coach that came along was a PE teacher called Roy Snow. And that picture, one of the pictures I've sent to you, I'm kind of driving out of the blocks and there's a guy crouched down. Well, that's Roy Snow, who gave his life. He was a new PE teacher at Nextwell School, and he gave his life to us as a group. And we were so successful. It was crazy. English schools. I was English schools champion 4 years out of 5 from 1971, hurdles and long jump. And our group, we're still all in touch with one another, and we're all still trying to keep going, keeping on. But so kind of Harlow played a very big part in my life, and it holds a very special place in my heart for those memories.
Yeah. And so this was so you're talking now secondary school, so you would have been like early teens probably when you were doing all of this. It
was from the age of 12 really started competing.
Okay.
By the time I was 13, 14, I was winning national events, and I was a junior international at the age of 15, and then a senior international at 16.
So when you were sort of 15, 16 years of age, you were you were traveling internationally to compete and things, were you? So you were traveling around Europe.
My first international was in Sweden. So the first time I got on a plane, we went from Southend Airport to a little village called Harnesund. And what was interesting during those travelling days was, when I think back, the facilities abroad. You'd go to a tiny little village in Italy or France or Spain or wherever, and they've got an all-weather track. So that Harlow track didn't turn into an all-weather track until about 74, 5, 6, something like that.
So was it before it was like a sort of a cinder kind of track before that, was it? Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe the facilities in some outback of a village. It was mind-blowing, really. And you think back I've got a big thing about young people getting access to facilities, getting access to sport, getting access to anything. How do we know what potential we've got out there when, you know, they haven't got a track at school, let alone a cricket pitch or tennis courts. You know, that's a big rant of mine.
Yeah, I suppose because Harlow really, like you say, it gets a bit of a nowadays, it's kind of like it's a changed place. Everywhere's different than it was, 30, 40, 50 years ago, obviously. But yeah, the facilities were, because like you say, it was a new town. It was like kind of Milton Keynes, it was one of these new towns that was built as, I suppose, as an extension of London, wasn't it? To move people. And then so you had this, it was built, just purpose built. So they built these, like you say, sports centres and sports pitches and athletics tracks and swimming pools, and everything was great. Excellent. And then how did you then go? So what happened? You were competing as a junior international, in teens, and then the first Commonwealth Games that you went to in 1974. Where was that one held?
That was in Christchurch in New Zealand.
Okay, so you were like, you said, I think you were just over 17 years of age, weren't you?
Yeah.
There
were a group of us. There was myself, Tessa Sanderson, a girl called Sue Pettit, Ruth Kennedy, and somebody else. We were all 17. And we had to share bunk beds. All the proper older athletes got a nice room, but we were in bunk beds.
but that going out to New Zealand as a 17-year-old in 1974, when international travel was not as open, as accessible as weren't all the airlines and stuff that there obviously are now. That's a huge. What was that experience
like? It
took
36 hours to go there. And we had a plane, so all the team were on the plane, and of course the throw Jeff Capes and Pete Tancred, Mike Winch, all the throwers were in first class because they couldn't fit in the normal seat. And then when you get your food come round and it's on a little tray, well, these guys would eat 10 of those trays. I mean, that wasn't enough to keep them going, and it took 38 hours to get there.
Wow.
Bahrain, Singapore, Melbourne, we just dropped down to refuel. So what an experience that was.
Like refueling as well. I mean, that's bonkers, isn't it? Because now you can you can get miles, can't you? But 4 refueling stops on the way.
Well, it's crazy.
And how was the actual experience for you at that first Commonwealth Games? Because like you say, 17 years of age,
Yeah. What do I think back? I don't know. Some people say, "Oh, you must have been so driven. You must have been this. You must have been, on it." Well, I just did it. I just turned up and ran. And obviously I did get nervous and when you've got a competition, but it was just my life, and I just kind of accepted it. And sometimes I wish that I'd had an athletics career from, say, the age of 20 to 30, when you're a bit more mature and you can experience those things and appreciate them, and appreciate, God, you're on the other side of the world. Well, I was just in New Zealand thinking, this is nice. Lovely. Oh, where's the ice cream van? Sorry, Kate.
So I was just going to say, I've talked about that with my friends before, like years ago, when people would take a year out and go traveling after their A levels or something, and then go to university afterwards. And I was like, stop that. Go when you're older, because you basically just drink your way around the world.
Cultures. Well, when I think my first big international, I was as a 16-year-old, a senior international. We went to Leipzig, and that was before the wall came down. So we're going through the airport, and we've got magazines like Jackie and I don't know what, silly magazines, girly magazines, and they were confiscated. And they searched our bags and whatever we had. If they didn't like it, off it went. And I thought, oh well, that's a bit, it's a bit weird, but I didn't really think about it. You know, the impact, you're going to an Iron Curtain country. How fascinating is that? And I just thought, blimey, it's freezing cold and the food's horrible. You know, I'd have gone there.
Cabbage soup again.
Yeah, broth again.
Yeah.
You know, what an experience to do that.
Wow.
I'd love to go back as a, you know, 30, 40, 50-year-old or now, to relive that in that time, you know, if you had a time capsule.
Well, that's one of the things, because you can't go back now, can you? Because it's there, but it doesn't exist anymore. The way in the state it was in,
not the way it was, but you just didn't realise the history of it and the impact of us being allowed in there and competing. So,
and in terms of the actual, when you went to say the 1974 Commonwealth Games in New Zealand, was it the pentathlon that you competed in there? Yeah, so by then you'd moved over to competing in the pentathlon.
Yeah, so I kind of started off hurdling and long jump because I was reasonably fast, and so in those days it was 100-meter hurdle, shot put, 4 kilo shot put, high jump, long jump, and 200 meters in that order. By the time the 78 Olympic Commonwealth Games came in, they replaced the 200 with the 800. Then they turned it into the heptathlon, brought back the 200 meters and introduced the javelin. And I only did a couple of heptathlons. I was kind of teaching by then and didn't really have time to train.
Yeah. So, okay, so you've got 5 events there then that you've got to kind of train for. Like you said, initially the 100-meter hurdles, the shot put, the high jump, the long jump. And at the first one, when you went in 74, it was 200 meters. And then in 78, it was 800 meters.
Yeah.
And I mean, so the throwing event, well, there's the shot put, obviously, and then there's the high jump as well. And so these were kind of newer events for you that you needed to.
I mean, when I was younger, the shot was the most tricky one for me because I was quite skinny when I was younger, and I don't know, I just didn't really focus on, because Jessica Ennis is not a big girl, but she could put the shot like nearly 15 meters, you know, and my best was 12 something. So I didn't really, I just thought, oh, you know, I'm not really really good at this. And
did you get any tips from Jeff Capes or?
Yeah, throw it further.
Eat more. You should have sat with him on the plane.
Yeah. So, and then high jump. How about high jump? Because you said you're naturally quite good at long jump. Because
I was all right. I was okay at high jump. And the thing that I think got me my medal in 78 was my rival at the time was a girl called Yvette Ray. She actually came third, and I think she's a year younger than me. Anyway, she was beating me fairly regularly, and on that day I cleared 1.75 m at that, and she didn't have such a good high jump, and the ratio of points that you get for high jump is a little bit disproportionate. So if you are good at high jump, you know, you're gonna get
more points overall.
Really, and I did 1.75, which I just couldn't believe. So, you know, for me,
was that your sort of lifetime best? 1.75, yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Katarina Johnson-Thompson, you know, at the Olympics this year, well, each competition she's been at, because her high jump is so good, that really gives her a boost.
Yeah.
Points.
Yeah. Wow. So you went in 74 as like a just over 17-year-old and just, you know, kind of just going along, didn't know what to expect, totally new experience in New Zealand. And then I presume between 74 and 78, you were going to other kind of smaller competitions or, you know, along the way. And then obviously you were selected again to go in 78. And that was I think that was in like Edmonton in Canada, wasn't it? The 78. Yeah.
I think, as I remember, I think the year before in 73, was the year I went to the European Junior Championships and got a silver medal there.
Yeah. Okay.
The 16-year-old. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So that was good. Yeah, I was trying to find the picture actually, because there's a picture of me on the rostrum, and I'm the East German girl won it, and I can't remember who was third. And I'm standing there like I'm 5'7" tall, 1m70, and these girls were giant. Yeah.
This is funny though, because like there's a few people who we've spoke to on this podcast who are like, they just seem to just turn up and win things or do really well, and they're like, I don't know how it just like Lucy Underdown just accidentally became the strongest woman in the world, didn't she? You know what I mean? Or the strongest tennis woman in the world.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, you know, you're just like, well, but that's kind of part of it. When people say you must have been really driven, it's like, well, I think people think that, don't they? People who aren't in this sort of in that world think that.
Yeah.
And I'm not in that world, but it just seems to be like I try to think of it in ways of whatever I do. It's like, you just got to show up.
Yeah.
And not necessarily be driven, just enjoy the process. And if you enjoy it, you're going to get good at it, aren't you?
I did really. It was my life, but at the same time, I had such a laugh. You know, I just loved it. It's such a laugh. And I was talking to James in the gym a few months ago, and we were talking about the olden days. And you know, I'm thinking about water. You know, my granddaughter doesn't go anywhere without her beaker of water. She's nearly 5. Oh, water? You know, I can't even remember having. We must have been drinking water, but the way they've got, you know, all the different combinations of electrolytes and this and that and sachets, and I think my mum used to make me some egg sandwiches and.
Yeah.
The picture of you, one of the pictures you sent through, we'll splice them into this, so it'll probably show up. Hopefully it'll show up on the thing. But you've got your spikes with you.
Yeah.
I mean, your guy, was it Roy? You said, who's crouching down? He's got a good head of hair on him. I'll give him.
Roy. Yeah.
I was going to say, he looks like George Best, doesn't he?
Yeah.
That back in the day.
He was only about 23 in that picture.
Was he? Okay.
So you've got your looks like your Adidas pumps.
Yeah.
And the spikes on them,
Yeah, well, they would be long because that was on the cinder track at Harlow.
Yeah, they're really long, and they're not technical at all. Like the sole's about 1 millimeter thick. So everyone talks about bare running shoes these days, and it's like, well,
And then when we used to go up to Cosford, the indoor RAF place at RAF Cosford, have you ever been there?
No, I haven't. No.
That was our major indoor competition place, and they were wooden boards. You ran round and it banked up 200-meter track, and you had to wear these tiny little spikes. I've still got a pair actually up in the loft.
It sounds a bit like a velodrome or something.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
you came off the bend and you were like almost in midair. And the noise of the wooden, you know, and that wasn't replaced until I don't know, the mid-70s or something. And that was our major international meeting venue.
Yeah.
What state are your spikes in the loft? Or the
ones that I've got are actually, they're not mine. They're a Welsh runner called Ron. Oh God, why can't I remember his surname? He was an international runner, and that coach I mentioned earlier on, Cecil Smith, they were great friends, and he gave me his. They wouldn't fit me, but yeah, I haven't got any of my original spikes. I don't.
No, because I was thinking, I don't know whether it'll still be a thing at the minute or not, but you could take them on the repair shop, get yourself on telly.
Yeah. I should have done that with my knee, shouldn't I? Take my knee. You could repair this knee for me.
That would be, what a great idea.
I know.
It's like Alan Partridge with monkey tennis and all that, isn't it? When he's doing his thing, the repair shop, but for people. Yeah. What a great idea. Surgery. Anyway, you heard it here first.
Yeah. It's just the idea of diet. You know, I thought more about diet in my 30s and 40s when I was doing a lot of road running, because I'd given that up, and then but I started road running. So I did the London Marathon 3 times in 91, 92, and 93. And so then it was all about carb loading and liquids, and where you were going to get your drink, and if you were going to how you were going to get all that fluid in you, and recovery. So I thought more about that
than when you were competing.
Doing the marathon than I would ever have done as an international athlete.
So when we'll move on to that in a minute, actually, what you did after kind of when the international athletics kind of when you stopped that. But so just the second one, when you went to Canada in 78 and you won your silver medal there. So you would have been about 21, would you have been?
I was 21, yeah.
21. Brilliant. Yeah,
There's
holding up the silver medal there. There you go. Fantastic.
Very shiny.
Very shiny.
It's not tarnished at all. You've looked after that. I like that.
I know. It's got a nice little place in the toilet.
Okay. So how was the experience different going to Canada as a 21-year-old in terms of, I suppose, how much of it you absorbed and took in and appreciated, but also maybe your mindset going to the second one and being a bit older and knowing a bit more, having more experience. How was that for you?
Well, I had a lot more experience by then. So 21, but when you think 21's still young, isn't it? But I was training by that time my coach was Tom McNabb. Have you heard of him? He was
he was
a British coach, and I was in a training group with what's her name, the hurdler Lorna Booth, so he told me I was going to do well, but when I did get the silver medal, he said, I didn't think you were going to do that well. So he was quite realistic, and I just think it just clicked. It's one of those things that over 2 days it just clicked.
I was going to ask, so the 5 events that you did, they were done over 2 days. So what would you do? 3 the first day and 2 on the last day? Is that work? Yeah. So on the second time when you went, you had the 100-meter hurdles, the shot put, and the high jump on day 1.
Yeah.
And then the long jump and the 800 meters on day 2. Yeah. Brilliant. Wow. And so were you? I mean, I suppose you don't know what to expect, I suppose, because in 1978, it's not like you can go online and look at who you're going to be up against and what your competition is. You just, suppose, turn up and you don't really know who you're going to be facing or what their form is like and stuff like that. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't even have phones. You couldn't. There's a picture I sent to you. Did I send to you that one with Mary Peters in it? And we're sat
it looks almost like a picnic table or at some kind of table.
No, it was the reporter's desk, and the girl next to me is Yvette Ray, who came 3rd, and in fact I'm still in touch with her. And Mary, that was, I think, when I was in the Commonwealth Games in 74, Mary Peters organised for me to phone home because I'd fallen over and hurt myself, and there was a report in the paper, one of the national papers, about me falling over, and so they wouldn't have been able to get in touch with me, and she organised a phone call, which was such a big deal from New Zealand. And there's about a 15-minute delay, hello. Hello, not you, Mum. But so there was no technology, there's no social media. Tom had my coach Tom McNabb, he had a very big thing that you put on your shoulder, video camera, and he would take that to Crystal Palace where we trained and video us doing the hurdles, and then it would go on a reel, and then we'd have to go somewhere and put it on a
projector. And
it was of no use whatsoever. But that was the furthest we got. Yeah, so you couldn't see who you were up against or anything really. It was,
Excellent. So you were competing then. I mean, and then what happened after? So 78, Canada, Commonwealth Games, silver medal. What happened after that? You came back from that, 21 years of age.
Yeah. After that, I did get a place going to the European Championships. After that, I came about 13th, I think. It was in Prague. I had a really bad long jump or something went a bit wrong. And of course, during that time, I was at college. I was at Avery Hill College doing my teacher training. So I look back and think, I went to college in 1976 and I went to the Commonwealth Games in 1978. And between 1976 and 1978, I must have drunk 400 pints of lager. So, like at college.
Yeah.
How did I do that? How did I train and go on teaching practice and, work down the dive, the bar, and go on a 3-legged pub crawl and write essays and get to Crystal Palace by bus? And, it was, I just can't believe I did. So, and Avery Hill was quite a small college. So, I was a bit of a sort of superstar there, really, a big fish in a small pond.
That's incredible. So you got a place in the European Championships was what year would that have been?
That was 78.
Okay, so that was just later that year.
Yeah,
okay,
it was probably September.
And then did you then sort of decide, because obviously you're at college, you were maybe going to go into, well, I know obviously ultimately you went into teaching and things, but did you kind of formally do you sort of retire from international athletics or athletics?
Kind of faded away, really. I carried on competing while I was at college. 76 to 79 I was at college, and then I started teaching in Harlow in September 79. And I know I was only 22 by the time I started teaching, but you couldn't fit everything in.
No.
You just couldn't. I suppose I'm saying you couldn't if I'd have wanted to, but I've been doing it for a long time.
I was going to say you were competing like at a high level, a level, and then at a high level, probably from 12 years of age to like 22. So you kind of were competing for a decade, weren't you, in athletics? So you kind of then you went into your teaching career in Harlow. What were you teaching?
PE.
Okay, fantastic. And what did people because the one thing is that some people I meet, they never really have done that much in their life, say athletically.
Careful.
No. No, what I mean is some people have never really got that far in terms of sport and athletics, but they talk about when they were young as if it was the glory days, and really relive that all the time, and I think that Dan John calls it the used to coulders. I used to do this, I could have done this.
They should wear a t-shirt that says the older I get the better I was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So but you are someone who that never really voluntarily talks about any stuff from the past. We kind of had to I got you on here, but that's why you did, but you never really, no one would know, it's not like you're kind of talking about it all the time and stuff. You're very unassuming, and you just
sorry to butt in, but I met Sue at your gym when I was there that day, and you had to tell me about that, didn't you, James? Like, we had a chat, me and Sue were having a chat.
It's not like every person that Sue meets.
No, I know, but
hello, Sue Collins, Commonwealth Games silver medalist.
I'm sort of going and I'm doing my little thing in the gym, and then someone comes in that I know, and it's like, oh, hi Tara, did you know, Tara, I was in the Commonwealth Games twice? Who does that?
No, but what I mean is, so the reason I was saying that is, so when you were a PE teacher at school, and you were a teacher obviously up until you retired, weren't you? You were involved in teaching like your whole you know, for 40 years or something.
Yeah, 38 years, 9 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
17
Okay,
days, 4
yeah, yeah,
hours,
yeah.
That's
20
a
seconds.
prop.
I was out of there, like, yeah, I've finished.
That's a proper teacher's answer as well, because Sean's a teacher, and we already know our next 3 holidays.
Yeah, I
We
know.
know exactly when they are, what dates they are, all of that sort of stuff, because she lives her life by
Yeah.
the school.
Yes. So what I was going to say was, did pupils that you were, you know, teaching and whatnot, did they know, you know, did they know who you were? You know, did they know what you'd done? Did
Yeah,
they
well,
know,
Harlow, it's all very parochial in Harlow. You know, the kids live in one area, and they don't. If they live in Bush Fair, they wouldn't think of going to Staple Tie, the next community
Yeah.
up. But so, and then they obviously they had local papers and stuff going on there then, and so, and their parents, when they come to parents' evening, they would know, you know, oh yeah, you do your running and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then when did you mentioned, so this would have been sort of around sort of 1980-ish.
Yeah.
And then you said you ran the London Marathon, I think, in 1991, 92, or 91, 92, 93, you know, 3 years in succession,
Yeah.
around 1990, the early 90s. So what did you do in that preceding sort of decade, from like in the for the 1980s? You know, what did you do? Did you do anything? Can you remember?
Wow.
You know,
Where should I begin? Well, I
keep
kept
it clean though, Sue.
I kept training. You know, there was this there's a PE teacher called Alan Price who taught at Mark Hall for many years, and he was a legend in the town. He was a Welsh scrum half. No, that's it. That's all I'm going to say. But he was great, and he used to run a circuit training session on a whatever Wednesday night at the school, and me and my friend Louise used to go to that. And then I played basketball. It's a Harlow team. Played basketball. Played a bit of hockey. I did do a little bit of football. I mean, girls and football. Goodness me. I mean, it just wasn't in the same sentence then. Girls playing football. Yeah, but netball. So I kept, you know, I was still doing sport. I was still training. I still go down the track and do a track session, you know, when I was 27, 28. I don't know why I did that. That was
Yeah, but that's great. So you went from, this is kind of what I meant. I think I mentioned before we started recording, that you've got that first part of your life, I suppose, from teenager to early 20s, which was high level international competition, traveling, probably rigidly structured training. And I know you said not as professional as maybe now, and the diet didn't work, you know, but it was just what you did, you know, you went to train. And then probably in your 20s, like you said, through the 1980s, you were very sporty still, but more, I suppose, sport was more like recreation and for fun, you know, and like you say, it was more about training and you know, that kind of thing. And how did you find that, coming from a kind of very competitive performance, you know, where you had coaches and where, you know, you were traveling to competitions, to then move sport maybe to slide into still something fairly serious, but more recreation and enjoyment? And
I mean, the road running kind of came about because I had my boys when I was 29 and 31, and it was the easiest thing to do. You just put your pumps on and went out the front door, and you know, as long as someone was looking after the boys, I could go running. And we used to, their dad, we used to belong to Broxbourne Running Club, and that was quite competitive. You know, because you turn up for a 10K race on a Sunday morning, or Wednesday night we used to have league meetings, and I think my best time for 10K was 42 minutes. And my best time for marathon was 3 hours 34. And given that I found the 800 meters really difficult, it's a mindset. I'm a sprinter. I'll never be able to get round 2 laps. So my best time for 800 was 2 minutes 17, I think. But really and truly, I should have been able to run a lot faster than that.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
the top heptathletes can run close to 2 minutes, and really I should have easily been able to run under 2:10, I would think. But
Yeah.
in my head, it's hard, it's 2 laps, I'm a
Yeah,
sprint.
in your head back then, 800 meters was a long way.
Yeah, it was. And when I
And then
think
you went to 5Ks, 10Ks, half
yeah,
marathons.
yeah,
Then it kind of recalibrates your mind, doesn't it?
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so actually the distance running, the road running, was kind of not obviously, international competitive,
no,
Commonwealth Games level, but it was still it still kind of had a degree of competition there that kind of, I suppose, ticked that box for you, or kind
yeah,
of, kept you there. Excellent. And
yeah,
how long, and then you ran the London Marathon 3 years in a row in the 90s, yeah?
yeah, yeah. And I've done the I think they still do it, the Seven Sisters Marathon down in Eastbourne.
Okay.
That's tough. That
Yeah,
is really
yeah,
tough. And did that twice, and that was a great achievement. I felt as though I'd really achieved something doing those marathons.
yeah,
And that's what I miss.
yeah.
I really miss being able to go for a run now.
Mm, mm,
After my knee replacement, but nothing really replaces it.
yeah.
Running. I just can't. I used to like spinning and
Mm,
going out my bike, but nothing really replaces running, does it?
yeah.
You
Especially if you're a runner, you're an athlete, aren't you? Yeah. Okay. No, so that's actually, I'm just thinking, so we're going back potentially early to mid 90s. It's about 30 years ago. So you were kind of running marathons probably around like your mid 30s, mid to late
yeah,
30s, was
yeah,
when you kind of running marathons. Yeah.
into my 40s, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And then what happened, obviously when did you first start skiing?
I first went skiing to Cram, Montana as a 23-year-old PE teacher because somebody else had dropped out. And that was my first ski trip. And then I didn't go again until I was about 33, 34, something like that, because we used to run school trips. So we used to go
You'd be going skiing with like 30 odd kids.
yeah.
Yeah.
We used to have three trips a year just because we were teachers, Yeah.
Okay.
The amount of times I've been skiing, I should be amazing. I was all right. I was all right.
Yeah. And then so you mentioned this is good because you mentioned your knee replacement a minute ago. How many years ago was that now?
It's
Two.
20 months ago.
I was gonna say nearly 2 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
It'll be 2 years in February.
Okay. Yeah. And why was that what happened with I know lots of people have, joint replacements as they get, older and things, but was there something specific that you feel it was due to your, wear and tear, due to all your years of athletics,
Yeah,
things that what was the
yeah, the consultant, when he came round after the operation and he'd opened up and he'd replaced and everything, he said he'd never seen a knee like it. He said it's one of the worst knees he's ever seen. So that was my left leg, which was my takeoff leg for high jump and long jump and hurdles. So that's gone
right?
through
Okay.
a lot. And actually, I do believe that because I'd always done training, I think my quads and my hamstrings were quite strong, and so
Mm,
therefore I went a lot longer being able to carry on
mm.
doing physical, because some people just can't walk, can they?
Yeah, yeah.
When they get to the point with the knee replacement. And I think that was a big thing, because the thing that really made me try and push to get something done was, go out walking. We did our walking weekends, and we'd walk, 10, 15 miles, wouldn't we? And then in the end, I couldn't walk for more than 20 minutes, and it was
Mm,
really, really hurting me. So I thought,
mm.
We're going to have to do this, yeah.
So just touching on that, so just because I didn't realize, so when you do your hurdles, did you always take off on the same leg? Do you every hurdle you go over?
You do if you're a sprint hurdler. If you do 400-meter hurdles, you've got to really be able to change legs, because if you take off on your right leg and or your left leg and you're going around the bend, your outside leg is it needs to be inside anyway. But
okay.
Yeah, left leg.
So everything, because they do that, don't they? I think a lot. I mean, I'm not really into. I don't really understand cricket, or I mean, I don't understand it. I used to play it when I was a kid, but a lot of like fast bowlers and stuff who are constantly putting that leg down to deliver the ball. It's you're putting that leg down with so much force. A lot of them have problems, don't they, in that leg that they're. And I suppose if you're, hitting that for the long jump, hitting that for the high jump, hitting that for the hurdles for years and years on end. Okay, that's interesting. So that. And then how? I know you've found it quite hard. I think after having the knee replacement, and I mean, how are you now? You know what I mean? Obviously, I know.
It's I can feel it all the time. You can just feel it. It's just stiff. It's not really your knee. And I did all the rehab really, really well. I didn't go mad, but I did it all, which not everybody does. And it's only really now the last 2-3 months that I feel like, this is as good as it's going to get.
Yeah.
So I think, just eating healthily, trying to keep your weight down, monitoring your exercise. I just think it's as you get older, it's important. When I was 48, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I just think, I'm not saying that because I was healthy, it doesn't really work like that, does it? You can be as healthy as anything, and then you get that, don't you? But I just think in the recovery stage, that made a big difference. To have something to aim for, even when you're at 48, you're not doing any competitions, but you think, right, well, I want to be able to get out running again. I want to be able to ski again. I want to be able to do all these things, and I just think that gives you I don't know. I don't understand anyone who doesn't like sport, or not competitive sport, but
just move and
moving.
exercise and
I just find it. Yeah, why don't you like it? I suppose it's a bit like not liking knitting or
It's funny because I've been on both sides of that, because I was never sporty as a kid, all the way through until my mid-30s, basically, probably, or like early 30s, definitely. And what you said there about, you can be as fit and healthy as you like, and you can still get cancer, and you can still die of something, or have a hole in the heart or something like that you didn't know about. However, if you do get ill or something happens, if you are already fit and healthy and you've got like good muscle mass and like strong bones and all of that, your chance of recovery is much, it's infinitely better, isn't it? So when you've kind of proven that, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so.
We had Brett Jones on, who's he's in his 50s, I think. Is he around? He's in his 50s, I think. But through lockdown, he had like throat cancer, didn't he? Like quite severe. But he came on the podcast a couple of times and said that because it's having that physical resilience and that physical strength that it kind of, he said, you have that kind of reserve of, and he was bedbound for a long time, and if you're stuck in a bed in a hospital for weeks or months on end, your body just starts to eat itself. If you're already weak and frail going in, you're going to be weaker and frailer and really struggling. But he was kind of fit, strong, healthy going in, and managed to, so I think it's like you say, it doesn't make you bulletproof, but it certainly gives you a better chance of dealing with things if and when they come up.
I was chatting to Dave in the gym this morning, the physio Dave.
He's a friend of the show. He's been on the podcast. Yeah.
And he said to me, because he keeps an eye on, I saw him after I'd had my knee and had a little bit of rehab and everything. And then he keeps an eye on, you know, how's it going? What's the name? And he said to me this morning, "Are you actually training for anything, Sue?" I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, what have you got? What do you train for?" I just said, "Well, I suppose just so I can wake up tomorrow and get alive." But I've just, and we had a really interesting conversation about, you know, what are you training for? Because I'm quite unusual in our gym, aren't I? That there aren't that many people that go in and just train. I've just
There
got.
actually are. There are. There's a lot more people who just go in to train than don't.
Oh right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
suppose
You're
the way
not unusual.
people,
You just people
yeah.
feel like that because
Most people are having one-to-one or they're doing a class or whatever. But I suppose because can go in the morning.
Yeah, but most people are, because we've got so many people in their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, and that you don't. We've had this conversation loads, haven't we, Pete, on the podcast? That actually you don't need a athletic goal or an event you're training for, because you get to a certain age and actually, you know, just training to be fit and strong and healthy and enjoy life and be able to, you know, go on nice holidays and play with the grandchildren and all
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. That's kind of enough. You don't really need. It's not saying that you mustn't have. It's not saying it's a bad thing to have an external kind of goal, but I
no,
think the majority of people just train, and like you say, because you enjoy training, because it makes you feel good. You know,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
yeah, it's but I think it's so. And then so sorry, you said at 48 you had breast cancer, did you? Is that
Yeah,
your age? Yeah, okay. So that's nearly 20 years ago, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, 20 years ago, this September it will be 20 years since, like, because I had to have 3 different operations and 6 months of chemo and 3 weeks of radiotherapy. So from this September till, you know, say March next year, I was kind of out of
Yeah.
circulation mostly. But
And did you have any recurrence of it at all, or you just had it that one time and it?
no, I
God,
just
yeah,
had it. Yeah,
yeah.
just had it.
Cool. And I wanted to talk to you quickly about, because this is another thing this is why I think it's really interesting, and hopefully lots of people can listen to this conversation and relate to it at various points in life and various points in your life. But recently we had a conversation, I suppose say recently, in the last year or so probably, whereby you wanted to you felt like you say you want to stay fit, you want to stay healthy, and it's more about health and longevity now rather than a specific performance goal. And you wanted to bring your weight down a little bit, and you couldn't understand initially why it had gone up a bit and it had kind of plateaued at a certain level. And then you kind of took a sort of long, hard look at things and kind of were very honest with you. What just
Yeah,
talk us through that, because I think
no,
that's so relatable for some
yeah.
people.
Well,
Yeah.
when I've been retired 8 years, and when I was working in the last job, it was very, very, very stressful, because I don't suppose she watches this, but the head was insane. It was, oh, just the thought of it. But the gym, no, I'd get out of the school as soon as I could, and then come to the gym, do spinning, you know, do all that, keep going, because that made my head feel a lot better. Because otherwise they would have carried me off. It was horrendous. And so I was about 67 kilos. I'm 1 meter 70, and that was like what I'd call my fighting weight. And then once you retire, you're not running on adrenaline. You haven't got cortisol running around your body. You haven't got, you know, high intensity stuff going on. You're just like, oh, I don't have to go to work today. How nice. I'll just have a cup of tea and a piece of cake. You know? And so it was kind of creeping up, and I got up to about 76 kilos, I think, at one stage. And I'm thinking, when I'm going to the gym 3-4 times a week. I was still doing a bit of running. Why am I so fat? What, you know, not that I was it was just getting on my nerves. And then, like you say, you know, that triangle you've just put out this week.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No, it's like I was thinking, oh my God, he's put Maslow's hierarchy of needs on. I'll have to remember that from when I was at school. But
Yeah.
yeah, but the bottom one, you know, it's what you eat, isn't it? You can't outrun a bad diet or whatever the phrase is.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't,
yeah.
and you have to be really honest with yourself.
Mm.
So I did probably about 6 to 8 months of. I know it is a bit of a fad, and I know you do it, James. And people that I've spoken to say, "What? You don't eat until 2 o'clock? Are you mad?" You know. But I did that, and that worked for me. And then I got back under 70 kilos, and I was about 68 again, which was fine. And now it's kind of crept back up to 72. And so you think, well, it's all around here. I was like,
But that's still, like you said, if you were about 77, 78, you know what I mean? That was well. But just to explain to people, this I just shared it was a triangle of like a hierarchy, I suppose, if you're looking at fat loss, and it had the bottom one was being in a calorie deficit was the most important. Then it was like making sure you're getting enough protein. Then it was like strength training. Then it's sleep, and then the top one was kind of cardiovascular exercise. Because most people, when they think, "Oh, I want to lose weight," the first thing they think is, "Right, I've got to do loads of cardio," you know. And it's kind of getting all those layers in place, just to explain to people, so we don't, you know, so they know what we're talking about. But yeah, I mean, that was. But and then you said, you know, you said, "Oh, you just realised that, oh, actually, I think I'm being really good because I'm going to the gym." But then, you know, I'm eating like, you know, like I say, a couple of slices of cake here and this here, and you just don't really, people don't really kind of, you know.
No, you just have to be true. You have to be truthful with yourself, and you stop moaning about the fact that you're not losing any weight when you're stuffing a pan au chocolat in every other, you know, hour, and you're drinking, you know, milk lattes and hot chocolates, and you know, and that's. But as you get older, you can't just. You've got to enjoy your life, haven't you? You've got to enjoy.
It's balance, isn't it? Like we talk about, you know, it's just kind of, yeah.
This is another hour's conversation, isn't it? Because it's like, if you know, people say like, "Oh, well, no, you just have to be mindful of what you eat," and then but I want to have fun. Yeah, but if you want to have fun all the time, you're going to be fat. It's the way it goes. You've got to balance it. You know, you can do both. You know, everyone can. You know.
Yeah, you can. You can. You just have to, you know, just really just think about it. Just think about it.
It'll be interesting because next week we've got someone else, you know, Steve Bush on from the gym, who's back on.
Oh, well, he's been on a journey.
Yeah, exactly, because he obviously was over 30 stone. He had his sort of like weight loss surgery, but he has totally changed his life in the last sort of 3, 4, 5 years. And now he's, you know, doing high roxes and cycling to Amsterdam and all sorts. So he will talk to him about it, because that's, you know, it's like you say, you've constantly got to be, if you're, I mean, I have to constantly be aware of it, but it's not, you know, I think if you go too far one way, if you say you get to the stage where you're 30 stone, you know, and you really are in a bad way, you know, it is a long way back from there. But I think what's so relatable for you about you, Sue, is that it's not like you were 30 stone. It was like maybe you just put on like, you know, 8 kilos or something like that, which is maybe about 1.5 stone, you know, which is,
you're just uncomfortable. You know, you can't wear the clothes that you used to, and it's just not a nice feeling. I don't like it. And so, you know, when I was working, if I'd tipped up a bit and had a heavy weekend and been socialising, all I had to do was 2 days of not eating ridiculous food, and it would just come off. Whereas as you know, you're heading towards 68, and I think, well, if I don't get it off now, it's going to just stay there, you know, till I'm 80.
No. Well, no, it's great. And the other thing that was part of that, or some might be maybe in a separate post, but I saw that the average adult puts on between 5 and 15 pounds every 5 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is about a stone every 5 years. So, and you can sort of see, well, up to a stone, 40, 5 to.
They explode.
But if you say 5 pounds every 5 years, it's only £1 a year.
Yeah.
You don't even notice that, but in 30 years, you're £30.
Well, but the opposite, the other thing of that is if you're sedentary as well, you're losing muscle mass while you're putting that weight on and all of that. Like it's a slippery slope, isn't it? That's why I think that's why it can catch people up as well, because they'll go, how did this happen? Because you can think, how did this happen, right? It's like, because you've been eating loads for 30 years. But some people, that's not necessarily the case, is it? But then the way your body reacts to not moving and not looking after it and not eating well, it kind of just lets that happen, doesn't it? So sarcopenia will help, it'll help with that. Your bone density will go down as well. And so therefore, actually, body fat stores will go up. So you can end up massive thinking, like, have I put all that weight on? And like you say, if it's only whatever you said, £1 a year or whatever. But it's not necessarily, it's not £1 a year. It's £2 a year if you're losing muscle mass and bone density and stuff like that as well. You could double it or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I'm making that up.
Have you always been a steady weight then, Pete?
When I was younger, no, but for the last 10 years, yeah.
Yeah. Because James was a big chunk at one stage when he was doing it.
So I've kind of gone up and down. I've kind of gone up and down over the years for a big chunk. I've kind of gone up and down over the years for various things. So when I got really into like almost like powerlifting sort of stuff when I was in my mid-20s, I want to say, and I was up to about 100 kilos, but I was intentionally
bulking up.
Chicken, like whole chickens, and like ate sausages and drinking gallons of chocolate milk and stuff like that. And then when I was boxing from my mid-20s to my mid-30s, I was down at probably like 65 kilos, and now I'm kind of settled in the middle of that. I'm kind of like, probably a good weight for me is around 85 kilos, you know what I mean? So I'm kind of in the middle of that. But yeah, so I kind of go up and down depending upon what I want to do really and what I need to do. But I will find it hard, and I would find it harder now to lose 10 kilos than I would have done 15, 20 years ago, without a doubt, No, it's good. That's so interesting, Sue, talking to you, honestly, and hopefully people have kind of
we haven't even got onto my dating scene, have we?
No, we'll leave that for next time. We'll do a separate episode on that. Oh dear. So that's really, really good. So hopefully, and we'll share some of those lovely the black and white images you sent us.
Oh right,
and we'll put them out.
They didn't have colour in the olden days.
No, but no, we'll put that out. We'll put them out because it's so interesting. And like I say, what I find fascinating, what I've really wanted to talk about and touch on is, like I say, this kind of picture of elite level international sport, and then kind of more sport for recreational and enjoyment, and then training for health and longevity, and then with your knee replacement, which a lot of people have as they get older, rehabbing after that, and kind of where you are now at 67, which is it's just a really fascinating opportunity to talk to someone like yourself and look at that whole kind of storyline, timeline, if you like. But brilliant, thank you so much, Sue. It's been lovely. Pete, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I just think it's been great to listen to. It was something you really enjoyed when you were younger. You kept it going through your 20s into your 30s, and then you got to like having kids. So to keep it going, you did marathon a few times, and then it's just kind of, and then you've lost, you can't go running anymore and biking and stuff. And you said, so that hasn't made you stop. Like the stuff that you love doing, you can't really do anymore. But it's like, well, okay, I'll think of something else. I'll find something else. There's always something, So I think that's great. It's just like but it's not an obsessive mentality. But it's also not you haven't given up. It's just like well, okay, I'll find something to do.
I suppose it's like exercise and sport and training is a part of your life.
Yeah,
no matter what stage you're at.
I can imagine not doing something.
Yeah, brilliant. Excellent. Thank you so much, Sue. Thank you so much, Pete.
See you
And
soon.
thank you everybody for listening, guys. So please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts. Like I said, today is the 1st of November. You know, we've got a couple of months left of 2024. So we will keep training, we will keep working hard, we will keep doing these podcasts each and every week. Next week, we are back for episode 219 with a return episode with Steve Bush to catch up with him. He was a really interesting guy where he's at the moment. We did mention him. We talked about him about 10 minutes ago. We'll be back with Steve Bush then. We have lots of other guests coming up in upcoming episodes. So we will see you next week for episode 219 with Steve Bush. Thank you very much, Sue.
All right. Cheers. See you soon.
Thank you very much, Pete.
Ta-ra.
Ta-ra. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.